My daughter-in-law borrowed my jewelry for a gala event. Hours later, I saw my necklace on the news, inside an evidence bag. Then my phone buzzed with a message from her. Don't believe anything they say. Minutes later, my house was surrounded by police. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The morning started like any other Thursday in my quiet life here in Ridgemont, Pennsylvania. I was 63 years old, content with my routines, my garden, and the 3-bedroom colonial house my late husband Dale and I had paid off years ago. The rooms held memories in every corner, photographs of our son Michael growing up, his college graduation, his wedding to Vivian 5 years ago. I was watering the geraniums on the front porch when Vivian's silver sedan pulled into my driveway. She emerged wearing designer sunglasses and a cream-colored pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. My daughter-in-law had always been elegant, ambitious, the kind of woman who turned heads at charity events and knew everyone worth knowing in Pittsburgh's social circles. "Mackenzie, I'm so sorry to drop by unannounced," she said, kissing my cheek with practiced warmth. Her perfume was expensive, floral. "I'm in an absolute crisis." I set down the watering can. "What's wrong?" "The Riverside Foundation Gala is tonight. You know, the huge fundraiser Michael and I have been planning for months? My necklace clasp broke this morning. Just snapped right off." She touched her throat dramatically. "I know this is asking a lot, but could I possibly borrow your sapphire necklace? The one Dale gave you for your 30th anniversary? My hand went instinctively to my collar. That necklace was my most treasured possession. Dale had saved for 2 years to buy it, presenting it to me at a restaurant overlooking the Allegheny River. The sapphires were deep blue, surrounded by small diamonds that caught the light like captured stars. "I don't know, Vivian. That piece is very special to me." "I understand completely." Her voice softened. "It's just, Michael's firm is hosting this event, and so many important people will be there. Potential clients, partners. We need to make the right impression." I wouldn't ask if it wasn't crucial. She mentioned Michael, and that changed everything. My son worked so hard at his law firm, putting in 70-hour weeks to make partner. If this event mattered to his career, how could I refuse? "I'll be incredibly careful," Vivian promised. "I'll bring it back first thing tomorrow morning. You have my word." 20 minutes later, I watched her drive away with my sapphire necklace in its velvet case. Something twisted in my stomach. A mother's intuition, perhaps, or simply the anxiety of letting something irreplaceable leave my possession. I tried to shake off the feeling as I returned to my gardening. The day passed in its usual rhythm. I had lunch with my neighbor Dorothy, worked on the quilt I was making for the church raffle, and prepared a simple dinner. At 7 o'clock, I settled into my reading chair with a mystery novel, occasionally glancing at the grandfather clock in the hallway. At 8:15, I turned on the television for the evening news. The local anchor's face was grave as she reported on a breaking story. Federal agents have made arrests tonight in what they're calling one of the largest fraud schemes in Pennsylvania history. The Riverside Foundation, a charitable organization claiming to support children's hospitals, is allegedly a sophisticated money laundering operation. Authorities seized evidence during raids on 3 locations this evening, including the Foundation's annual gala at the Grandview Hotel. My breath caught. That was Vivian's event. The camera cut to footage from outside the hotel, police cars with flashing lights, people in evening wear being escorted out. And then, my heart stopped, a close-up of an evidence table where seized items were displayed. There, among watches and documents and other jewelry, was my sapphire necklace. I recognized it instantly. The distinctive arrangement of stones, the antique setting Dale had chosen because it reminded him of my grandmother's era. My phone vibrated on the side table. A text message from Vivian. "Don't believe anything they say." I stared at those 5 words, my mind racing. What did she mean? Was she denying involvement? Warning me? Before I could formulate a response, I heard vehicles outside. Multiple vehicles. I walked to my front window and pulled back the curtain. 3 police cars had pulled up to my house, blocking my driveway. Officers were emerging, moving with purpose toward my front door. An unmarked sedan parked behind them, and 2 people in suits stepped out. Federal agents, I assumed. The doorbell rang. Then a heavy knock. "Mrs. Mackenzie Whitmore, this is the FBI. We need to speak with you. My hands trembled as I set down my phone. The news footage was still playing on the television. Reporters describing frozen bank accounts, falsified donation records, connections to organized crime, and my necklace, sitting there on that evidence table, linking me to all of it. I opened the door to find 5 officers on my porch. The woman in front, mid-40s with steel gray eyes, showed me her badge. "Mrs. Whitmore, I'm Special Agent Caroline DeSanto. May we come in?" "What is this about?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. "We need to ask you some questions about the Riverside Foundation and your connection to Vivian Whitmore. We have reason to believe you may have information relevant to our investigation. Vivian is my daughter-in-law. I don't know anything about fraud or money laundering." Agent DeSanto's expression remained neutral. "Ma'am, your jewelry was recovered from the Gala. A very distinctive sapphire necklace. The security footage shows Mrs. Vivian Whitmore wearing it this evening. We need to understand your involvement." "I loaned it to her. Just this morning. She said her own necklace broke and asked to borrow mine." "I see." The agent glanced at her colleague. "Mrs. Whitmore, you should know that Vivian Whitmore and your son Michael are both in federal custody. They're being questioned about their roles in a criminal organization that has defrauded donors of more than $40 million. The porch tilted beneath my feet. Michael? My son? It was impossible. He was a lawyer, an officer of the court. He coached Little League on weekends and called me every Sunday evening. There's been a mistake. Michael wouldn't— We have evidence, Mrs. Whitmore. Financial records, communications, witness statements. Now, we need to determine your level of involvement." Agent DeSanto's tone sharpened. "Did you know what your necklace would be used for? Were you aware of the Foundation's illegal activities?" "Of course not. I'm just a retired school teacher. I loaned my necklace to my daughter-in-law for one evening. That necklace is worth approximately $60,000 according to our appraiser. Items of that value being worn at the gala helped establish legitimacy and attract high-dollar donors. You're saying you had no idea it would be used this way?" $60,000. I had never had it formally appraised. Dale had told me it was valuable, but I never imagined— "I need to sit down," I managed. They followed me inside, and suddenly my safe, familiar living room felt like a crime scene. The agents spread throughout the first floor while Officer DeSanto sat across from me, pulling out a recording device. "Mrs. Whitmore, I'm going to record this conversation. You're not under arrest, but anything you say can be used in our investigation. Do you understand?" I nodded, my mind spinning. How had this happened? How had my simple act of helping my daughter-in-law entangled me in a federal case? "Tell me exactly what happened this morning when Vivian came to your house." I recounted the story, the broken clasp, the important event, my desire to help Michael's career. As I spoke, I saw how naive it sounded. An experienced teacher who'd spent 40 years identifying lies from students, and I'd walked right into this. "Have you attended Riverside Foundation events before?" Agent DeSanto asked. "No, never. I didn't even know what the foundation did until tonight. But your son and daughter-in-law have been involved with it for over 2 years. They never discussed it with you?" "They mentioned charity work sometimes, but nothing specific. Michael's very busy with his practice, and Vivian—" I stopped, remembering. "Vivian did ask me about my jewelry once, a few months ago. She wanted to know what pieces I had, their history. She said she was learning about estate planning." Agent DeSanto leaned forward. "Did she photograph any items? Make notes?" "I don't think so. We were just talking over tea." But even as I said it, doubt crept in. Had Vivian been cataloging my possessions? Planning this moment? Another agent appeared from my bedroom. "Found this in the dresser drawer." He held up my jewelry box, the one where I kept my few good pieces. It was open, the contents disturbed. "I didn't leave it like that," I said. "It's always closed." "We'll need to photograph everything for the record," Agent DeSanto said. "Mrs. Whitmore, did anyone else have access to your home recently?" "Just family. Michael and Vivian have a key for emergencies." "When was the last time they were here?" I tried to remember. "Sunday. They came for dinner." "And between Sunday and this morning, you're certain no one entered your home?" "I've been here the whole time. I would have noticed—" "But would I?" I took walks every afternoon. I worked in the back garden where I couldn't see the driveway. Someone could have come and gone without my knowledge. The questioning continued for another hour. They wanted to know about my finances, my relationships with Michael and Vivian, any conversations about the foundation or charity work or large sums of money. Each question revealed how little I actually knew about my son's life, his business dealings, his marriage. Finally, Agent DeSanto closed her notepad. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm not charging you with anything tonight, but understand that this investigation is ongoing. We'll need to examine your financial records, phone records, possibly search the house more thoroughly. Don't leave town. And if Vivian or Michael try to contact you, inform us immediately. After they left, I sat in the dark living room for a long time. The house felt different now, contaminated by suspicion and fear. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Vivian. I'm sorry. Trust nothing except what I tell you. They're watching everything. I stared at those words, and a cold realization settled over me. Whatever was happening, whatever my son and daughter-in-law were involved in, I had been pulled into the center of it. My necklace wasn't just evidence. It was a connection that made me look complicit, and I had just realized something else, something that made my blood run cold. Last week, when I went to the bank to deposit my Social Security check, the teller had mentioned that someone had inquired about my accounts. A family member, she said, wanting to help me with financial planning. I had assumed it was Michael being thoughtful. Now I wondered who had really been asking, and more importantly, why. The grandfather clock chimed 10 times, each note resonating through the silent house. Somewhere in Pittsburgh, my son was sitting in a federal interrogation room. My daughter-in-law was doing the same. And I was here, alone, with nothing but questions and a terrible, growing certainty that the danger was far from over. My phone buzzed a third time. Not Vivian this time, but an unknown number. Say nothing to anyone. More depends on your silence than you can imagine. People are listening. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. Someone was watching my house. Someone was listening to my conversations. And I had no idea who I could trust. Not even my own son. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the house, every car passing on the street, sent my heart racing. The anonymous text message glowed in my memory. People are listening. I kept my phone face down on the nightstand, afraid to look at it, afraid not to. At 6 a.m, I gave up on sleep and went downstairs. My hands shook as I made coffee, spilling grounds across the counter. The kitchen window faced the street, and I kept glancing out, checking for unfamiliar vehicles. A dark sedan was parked 3 houses down. Had it been there yesterday? I couldn't remember. I needed to think clearly. Michael was my son, my only child. Whatever he'd done or hadn't done, I needed to understand what was happening. But Agent DeSanto's words kept echoing. $40 million. Criminal organization. Your level of involvement. The doorbell startled me so badly I nearly dropped my mug. Through the front window, I saw a woman I didn't recognize. Late 30s, business suit, leather briefcase. Not FBI this time. Something about her posture seemed less official. I opened the door with the chain still attached. Yes? Mrs. Whitmore? My name is Rebecca Torres. I'm an attorney. She handed a business card through the gap. I've been retained to speak with you about recent events. Who retained you? Someone concerned about your welfare. May I come in? What I have to tell you is sensitive. Every instinct screamed not to trust anyone, but I needed information. I unhooked the chain and let her inside, keeping the door open behind her. An escape route if I needed one. Rebecca Torres settled onto my sofa without invitation, pulling documents from her briefcase. Mrs. Whitmore, you're in serious trouble. The FBI believes you were complicit in the Riverside Foundation fraud. They have evidence that suggests you weren't just an innocent victim. That's ridiculous. I loaned a necklace to my daughter-in-law. A $60,000 necklace that helped legitimize a criminal enterprise. Do you know what accessory after the fact means? What conspiracy charges look like? She slid a paper across my coffee table. You could be facing 20 years in federal prison. The room spun. I didn't do anything wrong. The law doesn't care about intentions. It cares about evidence. And right now, the evidence makes you look guilty. She leaned forward. But I can help you. I specialize in cases like this. Innocent people caught up in their family members' crimes. If we act quickly, we can negotiate immunity in exchange for your testimony against Michael and Vivian. Something in her tone struck me wrong. Too smooth. Too rehearsed. Who sent you? A mutual friend who wants to protect you. What friend? Give me a name. Rebecca's smile faltered. Mrs. Whitmore, we don't have time for games. The FBI will be back with a warrant. They'll seize your house, freeze your accounts, dig through every aspect of your life, unless you cooperate with me first. I stood up. I think you should leave. You're making a mistake. Maybe. But it's my mistake to make. Please go. After she left, I locked the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. That woman wasn't trying to help me. She was fishing for information. But for whom? The FBI? Michael and Vivian? Someone else entirely? I went to my desk and pulled out the file folder where I kept important documents. Bank statements, property deed, insurance policies. Everything seemed in order, but I noticed something odd. The folder had been in the back of the drawer when I last checked it. Now it was near the front. Had the FBI moved it last night? Or had someone else been through my papers? My phone rang. Michael's number. My finger hovered over the answer button. Agent DeSanto had said to report any contact, but this was my son. I answered. Mom? His voice was strained, exhausted. Mom, I only have a minute. They're letting me make one call. Michael, what's happening? The FBI said, don't believe them. It's all a misunderstanding. Vivian and I got caught up in something we didn't understand. The foundation. We thought it was legitimate. Your wife borrowed my necklace. Now it's evidence in a fraud case. That was bad timing. She didn't know about the investigation. Mom, you have to trust me. Then explain it to me. $40 million, Michael. Money laundering. Static crackled on the line. When Michael spoke again, his voice was different. Urgent. Almost frightened. Mom, listen carefully. There are things about this you don't understand. Things about Dad. My breath caught. What about your father? He kept documents, important ones. You need to find them before anyone else does. Check his... The line went dead. I tried calling back immediately. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried 3 more times with the same result. Things about Dad. Documents. What was Michael talking about? Dale had been dead for 7 years. He'd been a high school principal, a man who spent his evenings grading papers and his weekends coaching Michael's baseball teams. What documents could he possibly have had? I went to the basement where Dale's things were stored. Boxes of books, his collection of baseball cards, old yearbooks from the schools where he'd worked. I'd been meaning to sort through everything for years, but could never bring myself to do it. Now, I tore through boxes with desperate urgency. In the 3rd box, beneath a layer of teaching awards and framed certificates, I found a manila envelope I'd never seen before. No label, just Dale's handwriting. For Mackenzie, if anything happens. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were photocopies of financial documents, bank statements from accounts I didn't recognize, and a letter in Dale's careful script dated 2 months before his death. My dearest Mackenzie, if you're reading this, something has gone wrong. I need you to know that everything I did to protect our family. 5 years ago, I discovered that the school district superintendent was embezzling funds meant for student programs. I gathered evidence, intending to report him. But before I could, he approached me with an offer and a threat. He knew about Michael's gambling debts from law school, debts so large they would have destroyed his career before it started. The superintendent offered to make those debts disappear if I stayed quiet about the embezzlement. I was weak, Mackenzie. I chose our son's future over doing the right thing, but I kept copies of everything. The superintendent is now serving on the board of a charitable foundation called Riverside. If you're reading this, they may be coming after Michael, trying to pull him into their schemes. The documents in this envelope prove the foundation's original funding came from stolen money. Protect our son, and forgive me. Always yours, Dale. I read the letter 3 times, each word cutting deeper. My husband, honest, ethical Dale, had been blackmailed, had kept this secret for years. And now, 7 years after his death, that same criminal network had ensnared our son. The superintendent's name was in the documents, Gerald Hartman. I remembered him vaguely from school district events, a glad-handing politician type who'd retired shortly before Dale died. Now he was on the Riverside Foundation board, and my son was in federal custody. I photographed every page with my phone, then hid the originals in a new location, inside a cookbook on the kitchen shelf, the last place anyone would look. My doorbell rang again. This time, through the window, I saw Michael's law partner, Stephen Caldwell. I'd met him at firm events, a sharp young man with political ambitions. Mackenzie, thank goodness. Stephen's face was grave as I let him in. I came as soon as I heard about Michael. This is a catastrophe. Do you know what's really going on? Some of it. The foundation was legitimate once, but new board members came in about 3 years ago and corrupted it. Michael got involved thinking it was a good networking opportunity. He had no idea about the money laundering. The FBI doesn't seem to believe that. Stephen ran a hand through his hair. That's why I'm here. The firm is prepared to provide Michael with the best defense attorneys, but we need to protect the firm's reputation too. If Michael fights the charges publicly, it damages all of us. We're hoping he'll consider a plea agreement. You want him to plead guilty to something he didn't do? I want him to survive this with minimal damage. A plea deal means less prison time, and the firm can distance itself from the scandal. Stephen's eyes were calculating. We're prepared to support you financially during this difficult time, help with legal fees, living expenses, but we need your cooperation in convincing Michael that fighting is futile. There it was, the bribe. They wanted Michael silent, compliant, willing to take the fall for something bigger. I think you should leave, Stephen. His expression hardened. Mackenzie, don't be foolish. Michael's career is over either way. At least this way, he gets out in 5 years instead of 20, and you don't lose everything trying to defend him. Get out of my house! After he left, I stood at the window watching his car disappear. Everyone wanted something from me. The FBI wanted testimony. The mysterious lawyer wanted information. Michael's own firm wanted him silenced. And I still didn't know who had sent those threatening text messages. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number, this time with a photo attachment. I opened it with dread. The image showed me standing at my kitchen window this morning, coffee mug in hand, taken from somewhere across the street. The message below read, "You have something that doesn't belong to you. Return Dale's documents or your son pays the price. You have 24 hours. My blood went cold. Someone had been watching me all morning, had seen me go to the basement, knew about the envelope. But how? Had they been in my house before, searching? Had they planted cameras? I looked around my kitchen with new eyes, searching for anything out of place. The smoke detector looked newer than I remembered. The clock radio on the counter. Had that always been there? I couldn't stay here. I needed help, but who could I trust? Not the FBI, who thought I was guilty. Not the lawyers circling like vultures. Not Michael's firm, willing to sacrifice him. But there was someone. Dorothy Sinclair, my neighbor and friend for 35 years. A retired paralegal who knew the legal system inside and out. If anyone could help me understand what I'd found, it was Dorothy. I grabbed my purse and Dale's letter, shoving the documents inside. As I reached for the front door, my phone rang again. Vivian this time. Mackenzie, don't talk to anyone. Her voice was barely a whisper. They've gotten to Michael. He's going to tell them you knew everything, that you were part of it from the start. You need to run. What? Why would he say that? Because they threatened to put me away for life unless he cooperates. He's protecting me by sacrificing you. I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this. The line went dead. I stood frozen in my hallway, my mind reeling. My own son was going to claim I was guilty? After everything? After I'd discovered Dale's secret trying to protect him? Outside, a car door slammed. Through the window, I saw Agent DeSanto and 3 other FBI agents walking toward my house, moving fast. One carried papers, probably the search warrant she'd mentioned. I had seconds to decide. Stay and face arrest based on Michael's false testimony? Or run, which would make me look even more guilty? I looked at my purse, heavy with Dale's documents. The evidence that could prove the foundation's corruption went back years, long before Michael's involvement. Evidence that could save my son, if I could figure out how to use it. The doorbell rang, followed by heavy pounding. "Mrs. Whitmore, FBI, we have a warrant." I went to my back door, the one leading to the garden. Beyond the fence was an alley, and beyond that, Dorothy's house. I could make it if I moved fast. But running meant becoming a fugitive. It meant confirming every suspicion Agent DeSanto had about me. The pounding grew louder. "Mrs. Whitmore, open this door or we're coming in." I made my choice. I grabbed my purse and went out the back door, moving as quickly as my 63-year-old legs would carry me toward the fence, toward Dorothy's house, toward whatever came next. Behind me, I heard my front door crash open. I made it over the fence with less grace than I'd hoped, landing hard on Dorothy's side and nearly twisting my ankle. Her garden shed blocked the view from my house, giving me precious seconds. I could hear shouting behind me, Agent DeSanto's voice calling my name, other agents spreading through my property. Dorothy's back door opened before I reached it. She stood there in her bathrobe, eyes wide with alarm. "Mackenzie? What on earth? I need help. Please, the FBI is at my house." She pulled me inside without hesitation, locking the door behind us. "Kitchen, quickly." Dorothy's kitchen faced the front street, away from my property. She peeked through the curtains while I tried to catch my breath, my heart hammering against my ribs. "There are 5 agents going through your house," she reported. 2 more searching the yard. "Mackenzie, what's happened?" I told her everything in a rushed whisper. The necklace, the fraud investigation, Michael and Vivian's arrests, Dale's letter. Dorothy listened with the focused attention of her paralegal years, asking no questions until I finished. "Let me see the documents," she said. I pulled them from my purse with shaking hands. Dorothy read Dale's letter twice, then examined the financial records, her expression growing more troubled with each page. "This is bigger than you realize," she finally said. "These bank statements show wire transfers from the school district to offshore accounts, then back into what became the Riverside Foundation's seed money. Your husband documented a criminal conspiracy that's been operating for over a decade. Can it help Michael? Maybe. But Mackenzie, you running makes you look guilty. They'll issue a warrant for your arrest now." Vivian called. She said Michael is going to testify that I was involved from the beginning, that I knew everything. Dorothy's face hardened. "Your own son would do that?" "To protect Vivian. They threatened her with life in prison unless he cooperates." "Or that's what she told you." Dorothy set down the documents. "Mackenzie, has it occurred to you that Vivian might be manipulating you? That this whole thing might be orchestrated?" The thought had crossed my mind, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. Why would she? Think about it. She borrowed your necklace knowing it would be seized. She sent you those cryptic messages to confuse you. Now she's claiming Michael will betray you, making you distrust your own son. What if she's trying to isolate you, make you panic so you can't think clearly? "But Michael called me. He told me to find Dale's documents." Did he? Or did someone cut off the call before he could finish what he was really trying to say? Dorothy pulled out her laptop. "I'm going to do some research. You stay here away from the windows." While Dorothy worked, I sat at her kitchen table trying to piece together the puzzle. Vivian had always been charming but distant, more interested in Michael's career trajectory than in family bonds. She came from money, old Pittsburgh money, the kind that opened doors. Why would she need to be involved in fraud? Unless the money wasn't old at all. Unless her wealthy background was as false as the foundation. "Mackenzie, look at this." Dorothy turned her laptop screen toward me. She'd pulled up a news article from 6 years ago, before Michael had even met Vivian. "Woman questioned in Miami investment scheme." That's Vivian's maiden name, Vivian Hartman. She was investigated for helping her father run a Ponzi scheme that bilked retirees out of millions. No charges were filed, insufficient evidence, but look at the father's name. I leaned closer. Gerald Hartman. Not Hartman. Hartman. "The school superintendent," I whispered. "He used a different last name, but that's him. I'm sure of it. Same face, just older in the photos I saw." Dorothy nodded grimly. Vivian isn't just connected to the Riverside Foundation. She's the daughter of the man who started the whole criminal enterprise. And she married your son to get access to Dale's documents. The realization hit me like ice water. She knew Dale had evidence against her father. That's why she married Michael. That's why she's been so interested in our family, our house. She's been searching for those documents for 5 years. And you just found them first. My phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. Time is running out, Mackenzie. We know where you are. Give us what we want or Dorothy pays too. I showed Dorothy the message. Her face paled, but her voice remained steady. We need to call the FBI. They think I'm guilty. They'll arrest me. Then we need leverage. Something that proves you're a victim, not a perpetrator. She thought for a moment. You said Vivian asked about your jewelry months ago, claiming it was for estate planning. Yes, over tea. She seemed very interested in the sapphire necklace specifically. Did you notice anything else unusual that day? Anything she did or said that seemed odd? I tried to remember. She used the bathroom, was gone for maybe 10 minutes. I thought it was strange at the time, but my stomach dropped. She was planting something. Cameras, listening devices. That's how they've been watching me. Dorothy stood up. We need to find them. If we can prove your house was under surveillance, it supports your claim that you were being manipulated. But the FBI is there right now, which means they'll find the devices too, eventually. But we need to get ahead of this. She grabbed her phone. I'm calling my old boss, Martin Zhang. He's a defense attorney now, one of the best. If anyone can navigate this mess, he can. While Dorothy made the call, I looked out her front window. My house was still surrounded by FBI vehicles. Neighbors had gathered on the sidewalk, watching the spectacle. I saw Mrs. Patterson from next door talking to a reporter. My private nightmare was becoming public entertainment. Dorothy finished her call. Martin's on his way. He said don't talk to anyone until he arrives. And, Mackenzie, he wants you to prepare for the possibility that Michael is genuinely cooperating against you. Why would Martin think that? Because in fraud cases, family members turning on each other is common. Everyone tries to save themselves. Your son might believe he has no choice. Before I could respond, Dorothy's doorbell rang. We both froze. FBI, a voice called. We know Mrs. Whitmore is inside. We have the house surrounded. Dorothy squeezed my hand. Remember, say nothing without Martin present. She opened the door to Agent DeSanto and 2 other agents. DeSanto's expression was a mixture of frustration and vindication. Mrs. Whitmore, you're under arrest for obstruction of justice and flight from federal agents. She produced handcuffs. You have the right to remain silent. She's invoking that right, Dorothy interrupted. And she wants her attorney present before any questioning. Martin Zhang is on his way. Agent DeSanto's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Fine, but she's coming with us. As they led me toward their vehicle, I saw more than the neighborhood watching. A news van had arrived, camera already rolling. Tomorrow my face would be on every local station. The retired school teacher arrested in a multi-million-dollar fraud case. At the federal building downtown, they placed me in an interrogation room. Gray walls, metal table, 2-way mirror. I'd seen countless crime dramas filmed in rooms like this. Living it was different, more claustrophobic, more real. I waited for 40 minutes before Martin Zhang arrived. He was younger than I expected, mid-40s, with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He carried a leather briefcase that looked expensive. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm Martin Zhang. Dorothy filled me in on the basics, but I need to hear everything from you. And I mean everything. Don't leave out details because you think they're unimportant or embarrassing. I told him the whole story again, this time including my suspicions about Vivian's true identity and motives. Martin took notes on a legal pad, his expression neutral. The documents from your husband. Where are they now? Hidden in my kitchen, in a cookbook. The FBI will find them during their search. That might actually help us. He leaned forward. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm going to be direct. The evidence against you looks bad. Your necklace at the crime scene, your son's testimony claiming you knew about the fraud, your flight from federal agents. A jury might believe you're guilty, but I'm not. I believe you, but belief isn't enough. We need proof. He tapped his pen against the pad. Dorothy mentioned surveillance devices. If we can prove your home was bugged and you were being monitored, it supports the theory that you were targeted and manipulated. But we need the FBI to find those devices and trace them back to Vivian or her father. How do we make that happen? We cooperate, selectively. We give them enough to make them question their assumptions about you, but not so much that you incriminate yourself. He checked his watch. They're going to want to interrogate you soon. I'll be present, and I'll stop any questioning that crosses lines. Your job is to tell the truth, but only answer exactly what they ask. Don't volunteer information. Agent DeSanto entered with another agent, a man in his 50s who introduced himself as Special Agent Robert Chang, lead investigator on the Riverside Foundation case. Mrs. Whitmore, let's start with a simple question, Chang said, settling into his chair with the ease of someone who'd conducted thousands of interrogations. Why did you run? Martin nodded at me. I could answer this. I received a threatening phone call from my daughter-in-law saying my son was going to testify against me. I panicked. And where were you planning to go? I wasn't planning anything. I just needed time to think. Chang pulled out a folder. Your son has given us a detailed statement. He claims you've known about the Riverside Foundation's activities for over a year, that you encouraged him to get involved because you saw it as a networking opportunity, that you willingly loaned your necklace knowing it would help legitimize the organization to potential donors. The words hit like physical blows. My own son saying these things about me. That's not true, I managed. He says you discussed Dale's old documents with him, that you knew your late husband had evidence of the Foundation's origins, and you wanted to use that information as leverage to ensure Michael's position in the organization. No, I only found those documents today. Michael told me to look for them during a phone call. Chang's expression suggested he didn't believe me. Convenient timing. The day after your arrest, you suddenly discover evidence that could exonerate you? Martin interjected. My client found those documents while searching her deceased husband's belongings. The envelope was sealed and dated 7 years ago. That's easily verifiable. If the documents exist, we haven't found them yet. They're in a cookbook in her kitchen. The FBI is welcome to look. Martin's tone was dry. Though I imagine you've already torn the kitchen apart. Chang ignored the comment. Mrs. Whitmore, we have phone records showing multiple calls between you and Vivian Hartman over the past 6 months. Calls lasting 30-40 minutes. What were you discussing? I tried to remember. Family things. Holiday plans. She called to chat, usually when Michael was working late. Did she ask questions about your husband's career? His time as a school principal? My heart sank. She had, multiple times. I'd thought she was just making conversation, showing interest in family history. Sometimes. Did she ask about any documents or files he might have kept? She mentioned estate planning once, said I should organize important papers. Chang and DeSanto exchanged glances. Chang pulled out another document, a transcript of some kind. This is from a wiretap authorized 3 months ago. Vivian Hartman speaking to an unknown male, believed to be her father, Gerald Hartman, also known as Gerald Hartman. He read from the page. The old woman doesn't suspect anything. She's completely isolated, no friends except the neighbor, no support system except Michael. Once we have what Dale took, we can close this loop permanently. The words echoed in the sterile room. Close this loop permanently. They'd been planning to... What? Kill me? Frame me? Make me disappear? We believe, Chang continued, that Vivian Hartman targeted your son specifically to gain access to evidence that could implicate her father in the original embezzlement scheme. She's been searching for Dale's documents for 5 years. The Riverside Foundation fraud is almost secondary. It's a money-making operation that also serves to muddy the waters around the original crime. If you know all this, Martin said, why is my client under arrest? Because we don't know what role she played. Did she cooperate with Vivian willingly? Was she blackmailed? Is she another victim? Or was she complicit? Chang looked directly at me. That's what we're trying to determine, Mrs. Whitmore. And your son's testimony suggests you were involved from the start. My son is lying to protect his wife. Or his wife is lying, and he's telling the truth. The door opened. Another agent entered, whispering something to DeSanto. Her expression changed. Surprise, then calculation. We found something at your house, DeSanto said. Hidden in your bedroom closet. A lockbox containing $50,000 in cash and a passport with your photo, but a different name, Elizabeth Morris. Care to explain that? My mouth went dry. That's not mine. I've never seen it before. It was in your closet, behind a false panel that required removing the baseboard to access. Then someone planted it there. Vivian had access to my house. She could have... Convenient that everyone else is framing you. Chang's voice was hard now. Mrs. Whitmore, let me lay out what we think happened. You and Dale discovered Gerald Hartman's embezzlement years ago. Instead of reporting it, you saw an opportunity. You kept evidence as insurance, as leverage. When Michael got involved with Hartman's daughter, you saw a way to cash in on that leverage. The Riverside Foundation becomes your retirement plan. That's insane. Is it? You're a retired school teacher living on Social Security. Your house needs repairs you can't afford. Your husband's pension was smaller than expected. $50,000 in a hidden lockbox says you found a new income stream. Martin stood up. This interview is over. You're making accusations without evidence, and you're clearly trying to intimidate my client into a false confession. We have evidence. The money, the fake passport, her son's testimony, her flight from custody, circumstantial, planted, coerced, and panicked, respectively. Martin gathered his papers. Either charge my client formally or release her. Chang smiled coldly. Oh, we're charging her. Mackenzie Whitmore, you're being charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering, and obstruction of justice. Bail hearing is Monday morning. As they led me to a holding cell, my mind raced. The fake passport, the money. Vivian had planted them, probably during one of her visits. She'd spent 5 years building a case against me, piece by piece, knowing that if the foundation was ever discovered, she'd need someone to take the fall. And Michael, my son, was helping her do it. In the holding cell, I finally let myself cry. Not from fear or anger, but from the overwhelming betrayal. The son I'd raised, protected, sacrificed for, was choosing his wife over his mother. Choosing lies over truth. A guard brought me dinner I couldn't eat. As darkness fell beyond the small window, I made myself a promise. I would prove my innocence. I would expose Vivian and her father, and I would make Michael understand what he'd done. But first, I needed to survive the weekend in federal custody and figure out who I could still trust, because right now, that list was very, very short. The weekend in federal custody passed in a blur of fluorescent lights, stale air, and the constant noise of other prisoners. I shared a cell with a woman named Rita, who'd been arrested for tax evasion. She was kind enough not to ask questions when she heard me crying at night. Saturday morning, Martin visited with news that made my situation even worse. They found the surveillance devices, he said, speaking quietly across the metal table in the visitor's room. 6 cameras and 4 listening devices throughout your house. Professionally installed, probably been there for months. That proves Vivian was monitoring me. It proves someone was monitoring you. The devices were wiped clean. No fingerprints, no serial numbers. The FBI can't definitively link them to Vivian or anyone else. Martin's expression was grim. But here's the bigger problem. They analyzed the footage from those cameras. My stomach tightened. And? One clip shows you and Dorothy examining Dale's documents yesterday morning in your kitchen. The timestamp is before the FBI arrived. The prosecution is arguing that you knew about those documents all along and only pretended to discover them when you needed an alibi. But that's not... The cameras prove I was being watched. Why would I examine evidence in full view of surveillance equipment if I was guilty? Good question. Unfortunately, the prosecutor's theory is that you didn't know about the cameras. That you were sloppy. He pulled out his legal pad. Mackenzie, I need you to think carefully. Over the past few months, did you notice anything else unusual? Any moments where Vivian or Michael seemed particularly interested in specific parts of your house? I tried to remember. Last month, Michael helped me move furniture in the basement. He seemed very interested in the boxes of Dale's things. Asked a lot of questions about what was in them. Did you tell him? I said I hadn't gone through most of it. That it was too painful. The memory took on a sinister cast now. He offered to help me sort through everything. Said I should really organize Dale's papers before something happened to them. Martin wrote this down. What did you say? I told him I'd get to it eventually. I wasn't ready. I paused. He looked frustrated. At the time, I thought he was just trying to be helpful. Now I realize he was trying to find the documents for Vivian. Martin tapped his pen. The question is, did Michael know what he was really looking for? Or did Vivian manipulate him too? I wanted to believe my son was innocent, another victim in Vivian's scheme. But the evidence of his testimony against me made that harder to accept. There's something else, Martin said. I've been investigating Vivian's background, her real background, not the wealthy socialite persona she presented. She doesn't come from old Pittsburgh money. That was all fabricated. Her father moved them here 15 years ago after the Miami investment scheme fell apart. Changed their names, created new identities. Vivian was trained from a young age to be a con artist. How did she meet Michael? That's the interesting part. She didn't meet him by accident. According to my research, she started attending events at his law firm 2 years before they officially met. She studied him, learned his habits, his ambitions, his weaknesses. When she finally approached him at a charity auction, she already knew everything about him, including that his mother was the widow of a school principal who'd worked under Gerald Hartman. The calculation of it took my breath away. She spent 2 years planning this. At least. Probably longer. Gerald Hartman has been searching for Dale's evidence since before your husband died. When natural causes didn't produce the documents, they needed a new approach. Vivian was that approach. A guard appeared at the door. Time's up. Martin stood. The bail hearing is Monday at 9. I'm going to argue that you're not a flight risk and the evidence against you is circumstantial. But Mackenzie, be prepared for the possibility that bail will be denied. The fake passport makes you look like exactly the kind of person who would flee. After he left, I was led back to my cell. Rita looked up from the magazine she was reading. Bad news? The worst. She studied me for a moment. You don't seem like the criminal type. Most people in here, you can tell they've made bad choices, you know? But you look like somebody's grandmother. I am somebody's grandmother. Or I would be if my son and his wife ever... I stopped. Michael and Vivian had been married 5 years. No children. At the time, they'd said they wanted to focus on careers. Now I wondered if Vivian had ever planned to stay once she got what she wanted. Your son's the one who turned on you? Rita asked gently. He thinks he's protecting his wife. He doesn't understand she's using him. Men can be dumb that way. She went back to her magazine, then added, My advice? Stop trying to save him. Focus on saving yourself. He made his choice. Sunday morning brought another visitor, one I didn't expect. Dorothy was shown into the visitor's room, her face drawn with exhaustion. How are you holding up? She asked. As well as can be expected. Dorothy, you shouldn't be here. If they think you're helping me, let them think what they want. You're my friend. She slid a folder across the table. I've been doing research. Mackenzie, there's something about the Riverside Foundation you need to know. Something the FBI hasn't released publicly yet. I opened the folder. Inside were printouts of news articles, financial documents, and photographs. The foundation wasn't just laundering money, Dorothy said quietly. It was specifically targeting elderly victims, people who donated their retirement savings thinking they were helping children's hospitals. 12 people lost everything. 3 committed suicide when they realized their money was gone. The horror of it settled over me. Vivian and her father did this. Gerald Hartman set it up. Vivian recruited the donors, used her charm and fake credentials to gain their trust. And Michael. Dorothy hesitated. What about Michael? His law firm provided the legal structure, created the shell companies, set up the offshore accounts. The FBI believes several lawyers at the firm knew exactly what they were doing. No, Michael wouldn't. Mackenzie, his name is on the incorporation documents. He filed the paperwork that made the foundation look legitimate. Whether he knew it was fraud or not, he's legally liable. I felt sick. My son hadn't just been manipulated. He'd been an active participant in destroying people's lives. People like me, elderly and trusting, who thought they were doing good. There's more, Dorothy said. One of the victims was Evelyn Patterson, your next-door neighbor's mother, Mrs. Patterson. The woman who'd been talking to reporters outside my house, whose mother had lost everything to the same fraud that now had me in federal custody. She donated $200,000, Dorothy continued, her entire life savings. When she found out it was a scam, she suffered a stroke. She's in a nursing home now, unable to speak or care for herself. Mrs. Patterson blames everyone associated with the foundation, including me, especially you, once the news reported your arrest. She's been telling neighbors that you were the mastermind, that you used your teacher reputation to make the foundation seem trustworthy. The injustice of it burned. I'd been a victim too, yet I was being cast as the villain. Dorothy, I need you to do something for me. It's dangerous, and you can say no. What is it? Find Michael. Talk to him face to face without Vivian present. Make him understand what's really happening. He's my son. Deep down, he has to know his mother wouldn't do this. Dorothy's expression was doubtful. Mackenzie, he's already testified against you. What makes you think he'll listen? Because he told me to find Dale's documents. In that phone call, before it was cut off, he was trying to warn me. Part of him knows something's wrong. If you can reach that part, the FBI won't let me near him. He's a key witness. Then find another way, please. He's still my son. After Dorothy left, I spent the rest of Sunday in my cell, thinking about the victims. Elderly people who'd trusted the wrong organization, just as I'd trusted the wrong daughter-in-law. The parallel was uncomfortable. I'd prided myself on being perceptive, on understanding people after 40 years of teaching. Yet Vivian had fooled me completely. Monday morning arrived with brutal efficiency. They transported me to the courthouse in handcuffs, the metal cold against my wrists. Media cameras flashed as I was led inside. The spectacle of a grandmother in chains made for good television. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Martin sat at the defense table, organizing papers. Across the aisle, the prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Amanda Reeves, looked confident and prepared. Judge Patricia Howard entered, and we all stood. She was in her 60s, with gray hair and an expression that suggested she'd seen everything and been impressed by none of it. United States versus Mackenzie Whitmore, the clerk announced. Bail hearing. Prosecutor Reeves went first, laying out why I should remain in custody. Flight risk due to the fake passport. Severity of the crimes. Danger to the community. She painted me as a calculating criminal who'd spent years building a fraud scheme and was now trying to blame her innocent family members. Your Honor, the defendant had $50,000 in cash and a false identity document hidden in her home. This speaks to premeditation and intent to flee. Combined with her attempt to evade arrest on Thursday, we believe she poses a significant flight risk. Martin stood for the defense. Your Honor, Mrs. Whitmore is a 63-year-old retired schoolteacher with deep roots in this community. She's lived in the same house for 38 years. She has no criminal record. The so-called flight wasn't planned. She walked to her neighbor's house in a moment of panic after receiving threatening phone calls. From her daughter-in-law, whom she's now blaming for everything, Reeves interjected. From someone involved in a criminal conspiracy that targeted Mrs. Whitmore's family, Martin corrected. The surveillance equipment found in her home proves she was being monitored and manipulated. The fake passport and cash were planted to frame her. Judge Howard looked at me. Mrs. Whitmore, do you wish to address the court? Martin had advised me to stay silent, but something in the judge's eyes, a glimmer of curiosity perhaps, made me speak. Your Honor, I taught elementary school for 40 years. I've lived a quiet, honest life. I loaned my necklace to my daughter-in-law because she asked, because I wanted to help my son's career. I had no idea about any fraud. The evidence they found in my house isn't mine. I've been set up by people I trusted. My voice broke. I know how that sounds. I know guilty people always claim they're innocent, but I'm telling the truth, and if I'm released, I can prove it. How would you prove it? Judge Howard asked. Martin shot me a warning look, but I continued. My late husband documented the original crimes that led to this foundation. I found his records. They prove Gerald Hartman, Vivian's father, has been running schemes for over 15 years. If I can access those documents and show how they connect to the current charges. The documents are in FBI custody. Reeves said dismissively. If they're exculpatory, we'll review them through proper channels. The defendant doesn't need to be free to make that happen. Judge Howard was quiet for a long moment, studying the papers before her. Finally, she spoke. Bail is set at $500,000, cash or bond. My heart sank. I didn't have $500, let alone $500,000. Your Honor, Martin tried. My client is a woman of limited means. Then she'll remain in custody until trial, unless someone posts bail on her behalf. Judge Howard's gavel came down. Next case. As they led me out, I saw Michael in the back of the courtroom. Our eyes met across the space. He looked tired, older than his 35 years. For a moment, I thought I saw doubt in his expression, a flicker of the boy who used to tell me everything, who trusted me completely. Then Vivian appeared beside him, whispering something in his ear. His expression hardened. He looked away. Back in the holding area, Martin spoke to me through the bars. I'm sorry, Mackenzie. I'll try to get the bail reduced, but it could take weeks. I don't have weeks. The trial? When will that be? Probably 6 months, maybe longer. 6 months in custody. 6 months while Vivian and her father covered their tracks, destroyed evidence, prepared their final moves. Martin, you have to find a way to get me out. Whatever it takes. I'm working on it. But Mackenzie, you need to prepare for the possibility that I'll be convicted? That I'll spend the rest of my life in prison for crimes I didn't commit? I gripped the bars. I won't accept that. I can't. After he left, a guard brought me a message. Not from my lawyer or Dorothy, but from an inmate being released. A woman I'd never met. She handed me a folded piece of paper. Someone paid me to give you this, she said, and walked away. I unfolded the note. The handwriting was unfamiliar, the message chilling. Mackenzie, you've been a problem for too long. Dale should have stayed quiet. You should have stayed ignorant. Now you're going to stay silent, permanently. An accident in custody is easy to arrange. Unless you want to survive, you'll sign a confession admitting everything and clearing Vivian and Michael of all wrongdoing. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, you become another tragic statistic. G.H. Gerald Hartman had reached me even in federal custody. He could get to me anywhere. And he was giving me a choice. False confession or death. My hands shook as I hid the note under my mattress. The walls of my cell seemed to close in. I'd thought federal custody meant safety. I'd been wrong. Somewhere in this building, or in the cells around me, someone was watching, waiting, ready to carry out Hartman's threat if I didn't comply. I had 48 hours to figure out how to survive. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I lay in my cell thinking about every detail of the past 5 years, every interaction with Vivian, every conversation with Michael. And I realized something crucial. I had more information than Gerald Hartman thought I had. When you're a teacher for 40 years, you learn to notice things. Small inconsistencies in behavior, lies hidden beneath polite conversation. I'd noticed things about Vivian from the beginning. I just hadn't trusted my instincts. But I'd kept records. Not because I suspected fraud, but because that's what teachers do. We document everything. At 6 in the morning, I asked the guard to contact Martin Zhang. It was urgent, I said. A matter of life and death. He arrived 2 hours later, looking concerned. Mackenzie, what's happened? I slid Gerald Hartman's threat note across the table. I received this yesterday. I have 48 hours to sign a false confession, or he'll have me killed in custody. Martin's face went pale as he read. This is a direct threat. We need to show this to the FBI immediately. No, not yet. I leaned forward. Martin, I need you to listen very carefully. I've been thinking about everything that's happened, and I realize I have evidence. Evidence I've been keeping without even knowing it was important. What kind of evidence? 5 years ago, when Michael first introduced me to Vivian, something felt off. I couldn't explain it, just a teacher's intuition that she wasn't quite what she seemed. So I started keeping a journal. Nothing dramatic, just notes about our conversations, things she said or asked about, dates, times, subjects discussed. Martin's eyes widened. You documented every interaction. Not everyone, but most. Including the day she asked about my jewelry. The times she and Michael visited and seemed particularly interested in the basement. The questions about Dale's career and the school district. I paused. The journal is in my house, hidden in a place Vivian would never think to look. Inside the binding of my photo album from Dale's memorial service. I slit the backing open and slipped the pages inside. The FBI searched your house. They would have found it. Not unless they dismantled the album, and why would they? It's just a memorial book. They were looking for financial documents, not a grandmother's diary. I grabbed his hand. Martin, that journal proves I've been suspicious of Vivian from the start. It shows a pattern of her asking specific questions about Dale's papers. It contradicts Michael's testimony that I was willingly involved. Martin was already making notes. If I can retrieve this journal, there's more. 3 years ago, Vivian asked to borrow my computer to check her email. She was on it for about 20 minutes. At the time, I thought nothing of it. But afterward, I noticed my email password had been changed. I assumed I'd forgotten it and reset it myself. Now I realized she was installing something to monitor my communications. Spyware. Yes. But here's what she didn't know. I got a new computer last year. My old one is in the basement, still functioning. If the spyware is still on it, can that be traced back to Vivian? Possibly. If we can show when it was installed and link it to her access. Martin was writing faster now. What else? Last Christmas, Vivian gave me a digital photo frame as a gift. Said she'd loaded it with family pictures. I kept it in my living room. I think it had a camera in it. One of those surveillance devices the FBI found. If we can prove she gave it to me, it shows premeditation. Do you have the card she gave you with the gift? Any documentation? Better. I thanked her in a Christmas card, specifically mentioning the photo frame and how thoughtful it was. I kept a copy of what I wrote. I always do, in case I need to remember what I gave or said to people. I smiled grimly. Old teacher habits. Document everything. Keep copies. Never assume people remember things the way you do. Martin stared at me. Mackenzie, you've been building a case without even knowing it. I've been protecting myself. After Dale died, I felt vulnerable, alone. I started keeping better records of everything just to feel more secure. I never imagined I'd need them like this. I need to get that journal, the old computer, and your card copies. But the FBI has your house sealed as a crime scene. I can't just walk in. Then we make them look. We tell them there's exculpatory evidence they missed. Once they find the journal, they'll have to consider it. Martin hesitated. Gerald Hartman's threat. If we show the FBI, they'll increase your protection. But it also means going public with information that might provoke him to act faster. I know, but I can't sign a false confession. Too many people have already been hurt by these lies. I thought of Evelyn Patterson and the other elderly victims. Besides, I have one more card to play. Something that connects everything together. What is it? Dale wasn't just documenting Gerald Hartman's embezzlement. He was documenting Vivian, too. She was involved in her father's schemes even back then, 15 years ago, when she was barely 20. Dale recognized her when Michael brought her to meet us, recognized her from surveillance photos connected to the Miami fraud case. That's why he told Michael to be careful, to take things slow with her. Michael thought his father was being overprotective. He didn't know Dale was trying to warn him. Did Dale tell you this? He tried to, near the end. He was sick, not thinking clearly sometimes, and he kept talking about the Hartman girl and how she was dangerous. I thought he was confused, mixing up people from his past. I didn't realize he was talking about Vivian. Tears burned my eyes. He died trying to protect Michael from her, and I didn't understand until now. Martin was quiet for a moment. If Dale recognized Vivian, if he documented that, his letter mentions it. Not directly, but he says he knew Michael was in danger from people connected to the original crime. He was talking about Vivian. And if we search his documents more carefully, I think we'll find evidence that he tried to investigate her background before he died. This changes everything. It means Vivian didn't just target Michael randomly. She knew Dale had recognized her. Marrying Michael was about neutralizing the threat Dale posed. The pieces clicked together with horrible clarity. Dale's death, The doctor said it was a heart attack, but he was only 63, relatively healthy. What if... Mackenzie, don't go there. Without evidence, it's just speculation. But I couldn't stop the thought. What if Gerald Hartman had arranged Dale's death? What if my husband had been murdered to silence him, and I'd spent 7 years never questioning it? Martin saw my expression. Focus on what we can prove. Let me talk to the FBI about the journal and the other evidence. In the meantime, you need to be careful. Don't accept food or drink from anyone except guards you trust. Don't go anywhere alone. If Hartman has someone inside, they'll be looking for an opportunity. After Martin left, I requested a meeting with Agent DeSanto. The guards seemed surprised, but they arranged it for that afternoon. DeSanto arrived looking skeptical. Mrs. Whitmore, your lawyer said you have information to share. I do. But first I need to know, have you found Dale's documents in my kitchen? The ones hidden in the cookbook? We found them. They're being analyzed. Have you traced the origins of the Riverside Foundation's funding? Have you connected it back to the school district embezzlement? DeSanto's expression shifted slightly. We're pursuing several lines of investigation. Then you know Gerald Hartman is behind all of this, that he's been running criminal operations for over 15 years, that my husband documented his original crimes and died before he could report them. We're aware of Gerald Hartman's history. Are you aware he's threatened to have me killed in custody if I don't sign a false confession? I pulled out his note. This was delivered to me yesterday by another inmate. Someone paid her to give it to me, which means Hartman has access to this facility, can reach me even here. DeSanto read the note, her jaw tightening. Why didn't you report this immediately? Because I needed to think, to understand what I'm really dealing with. I leaned forward. Agent DeSanto, I know how this looks. I know the evidence suggests I'm guilty. But I've been keeping records for 5 years. A journal documenting every suspicious interaction with Vivian, every odd question, every moment that felt wrong. That journal is in my house, hidden inside my photo album from Dale's memorial service. If you find it, you'll see I've been suspicious of her from the beginning. You'll see this isn't about me being complicit. It's about me being too polite to act on my instincts. DeSanto studied me. If this journal exists, why didn't you mention it before? Because I didn't realize it mattered. I thought I was just being an anxious mother-in-law, writing down concerns that made me seem paranoid. I never imagined it would become evidence in a criminal case. I met her eyes. But it proves I'm telling the truth. It proves Vivian has been manipulating my family for years, and I was aware something was wrong even if I couldn't articulate what. I'll send agents to search for it. There's more. My old computer in the basement may have spyware that Vivian installed 3 years ago. The digital photo frame she gave me for Christmas likely contains one of the surveillance cameras you found. And if you check Dale's documents carefully, you'll find evidence that he recognized Vivian as being connected to Gerald Hartman's past crimes. DeSanto was making notes. This is quite a detailed counter-narrative you've constructed. It's not a narrative. It's the truth. And I can prove every word. I paused. But I need protection. Gerald Hartman's threat is real. He's killed before. I'm almost certain he arranged my husband's death. He won't hesitate to kill me if it means protecting his daughter and his criminal empire. I'll arrange for enhanced security measures. And Mrs. Whitmore, DeSanto's tone softened slightly. If everything you're saying is true, you should have trusted your instincts earlier. You should have told someone what you suspected. I know, but women my age are taught not to make waves, not to accuse people without proof, not to seem difficult or paranoid. I was raised to be polite, to give people the benefit of the doubt. My voice hardened. That's what people like Vivian count on. That's how they operate, using our good manners and social conditioning against us. But I'm done being polite. I'm done pretending not to notice things that are wrong, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what she is. That evening, Dorothy came to visit again. She looked exhausted but determined. I found him, she said quietly. Michael. He's been staying at a hotel. Vivian's in a different facility, higher security. I waited in the lobby until he came down for dinner, then approached him. What did he say? At first, nothing. He tried to walk past me. But I blocked his path and told him I knew he was lying, that his testimony was destroying his mother. Dorothy's voice shook. Mackenzie, he broke down. Started crying right there in the hotel lobby. He said he knows you're innocent, that he never believed you were involved. But Vivian convinced him that if he didn't testify against you, they'd both get maximum sentences. She said the only way to save themselves was to make you the mastermind. My heart clenched. He knows I'm innocent and he's terrified. Vivian has controlled him for so long, he doesn't know how to think for himself anymore. She's convinced him that you're strong enough to survive prison, that you'd want him to protect himself. Dorothy grabbed my hands through the barrier, but I could see it in his eyes. He's haunted by what he's done. He's not sleeping, barely eating. The guilt is destroying him. Did you tell him about Dale's documents? About Vivian's real identity? I tried. He said he knows about her father, that she told him Gerald had made mistakes in the past but had reformed. She's painted herself as the daughter trying to overcome her father's sins, and Michael believes her. Dorothy shook her head. He's so deep in her manipulation, he can't see the truth even when it's right in front of him. Then we need to force him to see it. When the FBI finds my journal, when they trace the spyware back to Vivian, when all the evidence comes together, he won't be able to deny it anymore. And if he still does? I thought about the son I'd raised, the boy who'd once told me everything, who'd trusted me completely. Then I'll have to accept that I've lost him, that Vivian took my son just as thoroughly as she took my necklace and my freedom. But I won't let her take my life. I won't let her win. The next morning, Martin returned with news. The FBI found your journal. They're reviewing it now. And Mackenzie, it's even better than you described. You documented dates, times, specific conversations, Vivian's questions about Dale's career, about documents, about your jewelry. It creates a clear pattern of her targeting you for information. Will it be enough? Combined with everything else, the surveillance equipment, the wiretaps showing her talking to her father about you, Dale's documents proving the Foundation's criminal origins. Yes, I think it will be. He smiled. The prosecutor called this morning. They want to talk about a deal. My heart leaped. What kind of deal? They're willing to drop all charges against you in exchange for your testimony against Vivian and Gerald Hartman. They realize you're a victim, not a perpetrator. The journal proved that. What about Michael? Martin's expression grew somber. That's the complicated part. His testimony against you was coerced, but he still provided it. He's still legally liable for his role in creating the Foundation's structure. The prosecutor is offering him a reduced sentence if he agrees to testify against Vivian and her father. How reduced? 3 years instead of 20. 3 years. My son would spend 3 years in federal prison for being foolish enough to fall in love with the wrong woman, for trusting when he should have questioned, for choosing loyalty over truth. Will he take it? I don't know. That's between him and his attorney. But Mackenzie, you need to decide if you're willing to testify. It means facing Vivian in court, reliving everything she's done. It means potentially watching your son go to prison. I thought about the 12 elderly victims who'd lost everything, about Evelyn Patterson in her nursing home, unable to speak, about Dale dying with his secrets, trying to protect a son who wouldn't listen. I'll testify, I said. It's the right thing to do. It's what Dale would have wanted. Then I'll inform the prosecutor. You should be released within 24 hours pending trial. Martin gathered his papers. Mackenzie, you did something remarkable. You documented everything, trusted your instincts even when you doubted them, and built a case that will bring down a criminal organization. That takes courage. It takes stubbornness. And maybe a little bit of spite. I smiled slightly. Vivian thought I was just a silly old woman, easy to manipulate. She underestimated me because of my age. That was her mistake. After Martin left, I sat in my cell feeling something I hadn't felt in days. Hope. Not just hope for my freedom, but hope that justice might actually be served. That the victims might see their abusers punished. That Michael might finally understand what he'd been part of. Gerald Hartman's 48-hour deadline came and went. No one attacked me. No mysterious accident occurred. He'd been bluffing, I realized, Or perhaps the increased security made it impossible for his people to reach me. Either way, I'd survived. Now came the harder part: surviving the truth. They released me on a Wednesday morning, exactly 9 days after my arrest. Martin was waiting outside the federal building with Dorothy, both of them smiling as I walked through those doors a free woman. The autumn air had never tasted so sweet. "How does it feel?" Dorothy asked, embracing me. "Surreal. Like I might wake up back in that cell." I looked at Martin. "What happens now?" "Now we prepare for trial. The prosecutor wants you to testify in 3 weeks. Vivian and Gerald Hartman are being held without bail. The judge determined they're both serious flight risks given their history of false identities." He handed me a folder. "These are the charges: fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, witness tampering. The evidence from your journal, combined with the FBI's financial investigation and the wiretap recordings, builds an airtight case." "What about Michael?" Martin's expression grew somber. "He accepted the plea deal yesterday. 3 years in federal prison, followed by 2 years supervised release. He'll testify against Vivian and her father." My son would go to prison. The reality of it hit me like a physical blow. "Can I see him?" "He's requested no visitors until after the trial. His attorney thinks it's best if—" "He can't face me." I nodded slowly. "I understand." Dorothy squeezed my hand. "He'll come around eventually. Once Vivian's influence is removed, once he has time to think clearly. Maybe. Or maybe the damage is too deep." I looked toward the street where my old life waited. Either way, I can't force him to see what he's not ready to see. I can only tell the truth and hope it's enough. The drive back to Ridgemont felt longer than I remembered. When we turned onto my street, I saw the yellow crime scene tape had been removed from my house, but the damage remained visible. The front door had been repaired but looked newer than the rest. The garden I'd tended so carefully was trampled, plants broken. "I'll help you clean up," Dorothy offered. "We can have it looking normal in a few days." But I wasn't sure anything would be normal again. Inside, the house felt violated. The FBI had been thorough. Drawers emptied, boxes unpacked, cushions removed from furniture. Every private corner of my life had been exposed and examined. I stood in the living room where I'd lived for 38 years and felt like a stranger. "One step at a time," Dorothy said gently. "Today we just get you settled. Tomorrow we start rebuilding." Over the following days, I worked to restore order. I replanted the garden, organized the scattered contents of my home, and tried to reclaim my space from the chaos. Neighbors kept their distance, some from embarrassment, some still believing I was guilty despite my release. Mrs. Patterson crossed the street rather than walk past my house. I didn't blame her. Her mother's tragedy was real, and someone had to be responsible. That the real criminals would face justice didn't undo the damage they'd caused. A week before the trial, Martin called with unexpected news. "Michael wants to see you. His attorney cleared it. Are you ready?" I wasn't sure I'd ever be ready, but I agreed. They'd arranged a meeting at Martin's office, neutral ground where neither of us could leave abruptly. When I arrived, Michael was already there, sitting in a conference room looking thinner than I remembered, older than his 35 years. Shadows under his eyes suggested he wasn't sleeping. He stood when I entered. "Mom." We stared at each other across the room, years of love and recent betrayal hanging between us. "I don't know what to say," he finally whispered. The truth would be a good start. I sat down, keeping my voice steady despite my trembling hands. "Why, Michael? Why did you testify against me when you knew I was innocent?" He sank back into his chair. "Vivian said it was the only way, that the FBI needed someone to blame, and you were strong enough to handle it. She said you'd understand, that mothers always protect their children even when it hurts." His voice cracked. "She made it sound noble, like I was honoring what you'd want me to do. And you believed her. I wanted to believe her. I loved her, Mom. I still—" He stopped. "No, that's not true anymore. I don't know what I feel. Everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my life, it was all lies. The woman I thought I married doesn't exist. She exists. She's just not who she pretended to be." I leaned forward. "Michael, did you know about the fraud? About what the Riverside Foundation was really doing?" No, I swear I didn't. I handled some legal paperwork, incorporation documents, but they told me it was legitimate charity work. I thought, his hands clenched. I was so proud to be involved in something meaningful, something beyond corporate law. Vivian knew that. She used my desire to do good against me. And your father's documents? Did you know she married you to find them? Shock registered on his face. What? Your father recognized Vivian 5 years ago. He knew who she was, knew she was connected to the crimes he'd documented. That's why he tried to warn you about her. Told you to be careful. He died trying to protect you from her, and I was too blind to see it. Michael's face crumpled. Dad knew? All this time he was trying to tell me, and I thought he was just being overprotective. He put his head in his hands. Oh my God, I didn't listen. I chose her over him, over you, over everything that mattered. She's very good at manipulation. She fooled me too for a long time. But you kept records. You documented everything. You knew something was wrong even when you couldn't explain it. He looked up, tears streaming down his face. You're the smartest person I know, and I testified against you. I tried to send my own mother to prison to save the woman who was destroying our family. You were trying to save yourself. That's human nature. It's cowardice. It's betrayal. His voice was raw with self-loathing. How can you even look at me? I thought about that question for a long moment. How could I look at my son who'd chosen so poorly, who'd hurt me so deeply? And yet, because I remember who you were before her. I remember the little boy who cried when we had to return a lost dog to its owner because you wanted to keep it. The teenager who spent his summer volunteering at the youth center instead of going to the beach with friends. The young man who called me every Sunday no matter how busy he was. I wiped my own eyes. That person is still in there, Michael. Buried under 5 years of lies and manipulation, but still there. And I have to believe you can find him again. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Probably not. But I'm giving it anyway. Because you're my son, and because holding on to anger will only hurt me more than it hurts you. I stood. 3 years in prison. You'll have a lot of time to think about the choices you made. Use that time wisely. Figure out who you really are when no one is manipulating you. And when you get out, if you want a relationship with your mother, I'll be here. Just like that? After everything I've done? Not just like that. It'll take time to rebuild trust. Years, probably. But I'm 63 years old, Michael. I don't have time to waste on grudges. Life is too short and family is too important, even when family disappoints us. He stood and moved toward me hesitantly. Can I? I opened my arms. He fell into them like the child he'd once been, sobbing against my shoulder. I held him, this grown man who'd made terrible choices, and felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, but acceptance. Acceptance that people are flawed and complicated, that love doesn't mean ignoring harm, but it doesn't mean abandoning someone to their worst moment either. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I know. Now prove it by telling the truth in court. All of it. No matter how badly it reflects on you. He pulled back, nodding. I will. I promise. The trial began on a gray November morning. The courthouse was packed with media, victims, and spectators drawn by the scandal. I sat in the witness waiting area, watching families enter, some seeking justice, some seeking closure, all seeking answers. When they called me to testify, I walked to the stand with my head high. Vivian sat at the defense table, looking elegant even in prison clothes, her expression carefully neutral. Gerald Hartman sat beside his own attorney, smirking slightly as if this were all beneath him. I didn't look at them for long. Instead, I focused on the prosecutor, on the jury, on the job I had to do. Mrs. Whitmore, Prosecutor Reeves began, please tell the jury how you first met Vivian Hartman. I told them everything. The initial meeting 5 years ago. The nagging feeling that something wasn't right. The journal I'd kept documenting my concerns. The way Vivian had systematically isolated Michael from family and friends while appearing supportive. The surveillance equipment disguised as gifts. The careful manipulation that had led to my arrest. I spoke for 2 hours, and when I finished, the jury looked at Vivian with new eyes. The defense attorney tried to shake my testimony during cross-examination. Mrs. Whitmore, isn't it convenient that you kept this journal? That you documented everything so carefully? It wasn't convenient. It was habit. I was a teacher for 40 years. We document everything: student behavior, parent conferences, concerns about children in our care. That habit doesn't disappear when you retire. Or perhaps you kept records because you were involved in the fraud and wanted insurance if you were caught? If I were guilty, I wouldn't have documented evidence of Vivian's suspicious behavior. I would have documented evidence supporting my innocence regarding the fraud itself. I looked directly at the jury. My journal proves I didn't trust her, that I noticed problems from the beginning. A guilty person wouldn't create that kind of evidence. The defense attorney had no response to that. Michael testified the next day. He was pale, shaking, but his voice was clear as he described how Vivian had recruited him to the foundation, how she'd convinced him to testify against me, how she'd controlled every aspect of their marriage. His testimony was damning, made more powerful by his obvious guilt and shame. Vivian's mask finally cracked. She stood up, pointing at Michael. "You're weak. You were always weak. I gave you everything. A successful career, social status, connections, and you're throwing it away because you can't handle a little pressure." Her attorney tried to quiet her, but she continued, her voice rising. "Your mother is a foolish old woman who should have minded her own business. Your father was the same, sticking his nose where it didn't belong. If he'd just stayed quiet, none of this would have happened." The courtroom erupted. Judge Howard gavelled for order, but the damage was done. Vivian had confirmed everything in a moment of rage, revealing the contempt she'd hidden for 5 years. Gerald Hartman merely closed his eyes, knowing his daughter had just destroyed their defense. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts, for both of them. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. Vivian received 25 years in federal prison. Gerald Hartman, with his longer criminal history, received 35. The victims in the courtroom wept, not from joy, but from exhausted relief. Michael began his sentence in January. He called me once from prison, brief and awkward, just to say he was okay and thank me for coming to his sentencing hearing. I told him I'd write letters, visit when he was ready. He said maybe in a few months. We'd see. Spring came slowly to Ridgemont. I worked in my garden, planting new flowers where the old ones had been trampled. Dorothy helped, her steady presence a reminder that true friendship survives storms. Mrs. Patterson stopped me on the sidewalk one afternoon. "Mackenzie, I owe you an apology. I said terrible things about you to the media. You were hurting. Your mother was hurt. I understand. But you were innocent, and I made it worse." She looked down. "The restitution money from the Hartman assets. It won't bring my mother back, won't undo the stroke, but it helps. And knowing they'll be in prison for decades, that helps too. I'm glad. Your mother deserved better than what happened to her." After she left, I sat on my porch and looked at my house. The same house where Dale and I had raised Michael, where we'd built a life together. The same house that had been invaded, searched, violated by both criminals and investigators. But it was still standing, still mine, still home. That evening, I pulled out Dale's letter and read it again. "Protect our son," he'd written. "Forgive me. I tried to protect him," I said to the photograph of Dale on the mantel. "And I forgive you. I forgive all of us for being human, for making mistakes, for not being perfect." I thought about writing a letter to Michael, but words felt inadequate. Instead, I pulled out my journal, a new one with blank pages, and began to write. Not documentation of suspicious behavior this time, but memories. Good memories of Michael as a child, as a young man before Vivian. Stories he might want to read someday when he was ready to remember who he'd been. Because that was what family meant, I realized. Not perfection, not blind loyalty, but holding space for people to fail and grow and find their way back. Keeping the light on even when they walk into darkness so they can find their way home. 3 months later, I received a letter from Michael. Brief, mostly about prison routine, but at the end he wrote, "I'm reading a lot, thinking a lot, trying to figure out who I am without someone telling me. It's harder than I expected. But I'm trying. Thank you for believing I'm worth the effort. I wrote back that same day, told him about the garden, about Dorothy's new book club, about the quilting project at church. Normal things. Life continuing despite everything. Because that was the other lesson I'd learned. Life continues. Scandals fade. Headlines move on to new stories. And the quiet work of rebuilding, of healing, of choosing to get up every morning and tend your garden, that's where real strength lives. Not in youth or beauty or clever manipulation, but in patience. In wisdom earned through years of teaching, loving, losing, surviving. In the stubborn refusal to be broken by people who underestimate you because of your age. Vivian had thought I was just a naive old woman, easily fooled and easily discarded. She'd learned too late that the most dangerous opponent isn't the one with power or cunning. It's the one who's been paying attention all along. The one who documents everything, trusts her instincts, and refuses to be silenced. I was 63 years old when this nightmare began. I'm 64 now, and I've learned something valuable. Age isn't weakness. Experience isn't obsolescence. And a woman who's survived 40 years of classroom chaos, teenage rebellion, and life's countless challenges is not someone you can easily destroy. My house stands strong. My garden blooms. And somewhere in a federal prison, my son is learning the lessons he should have learned years ago. It's not the ending I would have chosen, but it's an honest one. And after everything, honesty is what matters most. I stand on my porch each evening now, watching the sun set over Ridgemont, and I think about Dale, about the secrets he kept to protect us, about the price we all paid for those secrets. And I make myself a promise. No more secrets. No more polite silence when something feels wrong. No more giving people the benefit of the doubt when my instincts scream danger. I'm too old to waste time on people who don't deserve it, and too wise to let anyone underestimate me again. The sapphire necklace was returned to me last week, released from evidence. I held it in my hands, remembering Dale giving it to me, remembering the joy in his eyes. It had been through so much. Stolen, used in fraud, sealed in evidence bags, photographed for court documents. But like me, like this house, like our family, it survived. I put it in my jewelry box and closed the lid. Some treasures are meant to be kept safe, protected, remembered but not displayed. The memories they hold are more valuable than the stones themselves. And that, I think, is what wisdom really means. Knowing what to hold on to and what to let go. When to fight and when to forgive. How to survive the storm and still find reasons to plant flowers in the spring. My name is Mackenzie Whitmore. I'm a 64-year-old retired schoolteacher, a widow, a mother of a son in prison, and a survivor of one of the longest cons I never saw coming until it was almost too late. But I'm still here, still standing, still tending my garden. And that, in the end, is the greatest victory of all. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.